it's Amy. Welcome back to Too Blessed. So once again, it's been a while since I posted a video. Um, there's been a lot going on. I mean, aside from everything that's happening in the world right now, my life's been a little crazy, and so I've been meaning to film an update video for a while, and then it just seemed like one thing after another kept happening. So I'm finally sitting down, now that I have some downtime, to share with you an update about what's been going on, and yeah, we might even talk about the current situation a little bit. We'll see. So, I meant to go back and look at my last update video and see how much I had shared, and I kind of forgot to do that. So, I'm just going to start with I was in the process for getting approved for a transplant. We had started in a new transplant center, and I have kidney failure. For those of you who might be new here, you can go back and check out some of my previous videos where I shared a lot more about that. But I'm currently on dialysis and have been trying to get approved to get a kidney transplant. So that's where we were. Started at the new center. We had two different appointments there. And then at that point, they had requested my medical records from all the different doctors and hospitals that I've been to. And they did see, of course, from the hospitals where I had been admitted last year, especially towards the end of the year. I think I had shared this before, but in like November and December of 2019, I was having a rough time. I was really, really sick, and we didn't know why, and I ended up getting hospitalized like 3 times within just a short amount of time. So they looked at all that information, and they contacted me and told me that they were putting my case on hold for now because they needed me to not be sick. And at first that was very upsetting news, but thinking about it in the whole realm of a transplant, after you receive a transplant, you have to be on immunosuppressant medications for the rest of your life, which keeps your body from rejecting, or tries to keep your body from rejecting, the new organ. And it's very important with those medications that you not only take them every day, but you have to take them at certain times every day. And so the big concern with that is that if I was continually that sick, I wouldn't be able to take those medications the way I needed to, and I could ultimately lose that new organ, and that is definitely not what anybody would want. You know, you don't want to go through all of that and then have that kidney fail. So what they said is that they were putting my case on hold, and if I could go for 6 months without being sick, that they would reopen the case and sort of, you know, complete the process at that point. Now, when I got that news, it was pretty discouraging, because at that point I felt like, how am I going to go 6 months without being sick? Okay, my husband just called and interrupted my video, and now I don't know what I was even talking about. So I'm going to try to pick up where I left off. So the transplant center had said that I needed to go 6 months without being sick. And I was worried because I wasn't sure that I could do that at that point. So we started, you know, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And my surgeon, who had placed my gastric stimulator for my gastroparesis, by the way, if you didn't know, I have that. That's the reason I get sick so often. But the surgeon that had placed my gastric stimulator had mentioned a few months previously that he had a surgical partner who was doing a new procedure that seemed to be helping a lot of gastroparesis patients. And at the time he suggested it, I wasn't interested. I didn't want to have another procedure done. When I did some reading about it and some research, it seemed like just on like first impression, it seemed kind of drastic and something that wasn't reversible. So that kind of worried me. But anyway, then when we got this news, we kind of felt like, okay, we're going to have to try this because we have to do something. You know, I was really at a point where I couldn't really function, and I was in a bit of denial at that time. I didn't want to admit that I was as sick as I was, and now looking back, I was in bad shape. In all honesty, I think I had mentioned this in my last update video. I had told my husband, I think it was in November when I was just so sick, I had told him that I didn't think I was even going to survive until Christmas. I mean, that's a harsh thing to say, but that's actually what I was thinking. I felt like I was dying, just to be blunt. So we went ahead and contacted them, and we had an appointment to go in and talk to that surgeon, and find out a little bit more about the procedure. We decided we wanted to go ahead with it, and they went through getting it approved by insurance and all of that. So there was a little bit of a time that we were just waiting to see what was going to happen. We finally did get all the approvals put in, and then I had the procedure done on February 19th. So I'm just over a month now. Today that I'm filming this is actually March 22nd. So it's been just a month and a couple of days. And so the big update is that I am doing great. And now I'm going to cry. So like I said, in November and December, I was just sick, so sick, and it was almost constant at that point. It was, or at least it was at some point every day. I felt sick, and I did a lot of vomiting during that time, and it just was bad. We had a little struggle because there is a medication that helps me, and all of the doctors seemed very unwilling to get me that medicine. I had talked about that in my last update. I finally was able to get some of it right before Christmas. So literally on Christmas Eve, or the day before Christmas Eve, I can't remember. Yeah, the day before Christmas Eve, I was able to get it, and it immediately turned things around. I mean, such a difference just from that. But I was still having nausea, and I didn't want to be dependent on this medication. Plus, it's actually an antibiotic, and you can't take it continuously. You can take it for a short period of time, and then you have to stop taking it, and then you can take it for a short period of time again. So I didn't want to be dependent on that. So after this surgery, if you are at all interested, which I've talked to some people and they're like fascinated by this, so it was called a POP procedure, which stands for peroral pylorectomy, I believe is the correct term. And basically that means it was not like an open procedure. They didn't have to cut me open. It was done through an endoscopy. So they just went down my throat while I was asleep, and they clipped the pylorus muscle, which is at the base of the stomach, which is what controls the stomach opening and closing. And so they just clip that muscle, and it kind of makes that opening where it's a little bit open all the time, and now the food can just like flow through, instead of being stuck there and sitting there for long periods of time. So honestly, I kick myself now because I wish I had done this so much sooner. I wish I hadn't been so hesitant when they first suggested it. And my husband wanted me to have it done, and I was scared. I didn't want to get worse, and that's what I was scared of. But things are so much better now. I mean, I don't get sick as much. There is still some breakthrough nausea. A couple things I've noticed is that, like, sometimes when I first wake up in the morning, I will be nauseated, but it seems to be because sometimes when I wake up in the morning, my blood pressure is very high. And then I'll take my blood pressure medication, first thing in the morning, and usually that goes away. And then about the last week or so, I've been having just random episodes of nausea that kind of pop up in the middle of the day, and I haven't quite been able to figure those out as far as what's causing that. But it seems to be easier to control. Sometimes I can just control it by maybe eating some crackers and, something to kind of settle my stomach. Or worst case scenario, I have to take like a Zofran, and then that just knocks it out completely. So even with those slight episodes of nausea, things are just so much better. And overall, I just feel so much better. I even told my husband, like, before, even when I wasn't sick, I just had this general feeling of like yuck is the best way to describe it. I just never felt good. And now I feel good most of the time. And it's really very miraculous to me, because I never really thought that things would be that much better. Woo! I thought this was going to be a happy video, guys. And now I'm sitting here crying, but they're happy tears. So, ooh. So, now we're not 100% sure at what point they started the count of the 6 months, that I have to be nausea free. We're kind of assuming that it's going from like my last hospitalization, which would have been like the beginning of December. So that's kind of where I'm counting it from. And so from that point, then we should be able, and they said once I reach that 6-month period, I should call them and talk to them. So I will most likely be calling them in June, probably right at the beginning of June, and see where we stand at that point. And the ironic thing, I thought about this the other day because of all the craziness that's going on right now with this current situation. A lot of, doctors' offices and hospitals and things like that are canceling a lot of appointments that are considered not urgent. And I've heard from people that have been in the process for transplants, and that's one of the things that they're canceling is those appointments sort of leading up to it. Now, like I have seen that people have had kidney transplants even with all of this going on. So, they're not going to cancel a transplant, because if a kidney becomes available, they need to use that right away. So, obviously they're not going to cancel that, but just those appointments that aren't considered fully urgent. So like I told my husband, even if I was in the process right now, my case would be on hold just because of this whole situation. So really at this point, I'm in the same boat as everyone else anyway. So that kind of makes me feel a little better, that that I feel like I'm not so alone. I'm not the only one that's having to wait. That might sound weird, but it makes me feel better not to be the only one. So, on the subject of the current situation with the coronavirus, I am definitely considered a high-risk patient. So, I am taking really not any extra precautions, because even during cold and flu season, I am very, very cautious, because I have gotten just a regular cold before, and it has turned into something very nasty for me. In fact, a few years ago, I had a cold and it turned into pneumonia, and I landed in the hospital. So I already have that history of those type of things. And then of course with my gastroparesis and with my kidney failure, I'm a high risk person. So I wish I could say that I am not ever leaving my house, but I still have to go to dialysis. And the dialysis clinic is being extra super careful. We have to all wear masks the entire time that we're there, which is not comfortable and not fun, but is just a necessity right now. Um, of course, and they've always been super careful about hand washing. Like we're all required to wash our hands when we go in anyway. Like that's just a normal thing. So we do that, and um, they've got hand sanitizer everywhere. Like I said, we've got the masks. They're just they check our temperatures when we come in, and anyone that has a temperature has to immediately go to the emergency room. They're just not taking any chances. So that does make me feel good. Um, the one concern is that to get to dialysis, I have to take public transportation because I cannot drive. And so far, it hasn't been too much of an issue because a lot of their other passengers have canceled trips because um, a lot of people use this transportation for things like going to court, like court dates and things with probation and things like that. Um, and all of that stuff has been shut down, so there hasn't been any other passengers. But I did just find out that I have to go to dialysis. I go Monday and Friday, by the way. So I have to go tomorrow, which is Monday. And my driver called on Friday. They always call to let you know what time they're going to come because it does change. And she called to let me know that I have to go an hour earlier, which is also a huge inconvenience. But I have to go earlier because there's going to be 2 other riders that day. And that does, in fact, make me nervous because I don't want to have to ride the bus with other people because every time I've had to ride with other people, there's always someone coughing and they don't cover their mouths and things like that. So I'm very nervous about tomorrow. I will be wearing a mask on the bus as well. I normally don't do that because, like I said, I'm typically, or at least during this, concerning time, I've been the only person on there, other than the driver. But I'll be wearing a mask tomorrow because I just can't take a chance. So other than that, we're really not leaving the house. We did go to Walmart the other night, and I did wear a mask, and people freaked out. Um, Nobody confronted me, but I had people like rolling their eyes and sighing and then just give you the evil eye. And I was like, I'm not even coughing. Like, I'm obviously not sick. And I told my husband I want to have a t-shirt made that says, I'm not sick, I'm protecting myself from you. So I don't know, I thought that was funny. But like I said, I started getting a little irritated at people because I'm like, why are you getting upset at me? Even if I was sick, I'm trying to protect you then. So either way, you should be glad I'm wearing a mask. That bottom line. Okay, so with all of this mess that's going on, I thought I would just share a couple of ideas, things that I do to just get through difficult times, and I thought maybe it would help anybody else who's dealing with this. To some people, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. The fact that they maybe have to stay home for a little while. And I get it from the standpoint, of course, of financial. If you can't go to work, you're not making any money. And just for some people, just being isolated like that can really be hard, can really be depressing. So we are very fortunate in this day and time that we have social media. I'm on Facebook and I can contact my family. I've talked back and forth with my sisters. I talked to my mom on the phone the other day. Like, we don't have to be so isolated as we would have maybe 20 years ago even. In fact, I was just reading some information and saw a video someone had posted talking about there was a quarantine back in 1915 for smallpox, and the entire country was quarantined for 2 months. And I thought, you know, those of us today that are just having such a difficult time with this, can you imagine at that time? And you wouldn't have had social media, you wouldn't have had a telephone, you would not have had television to keep yourself busy for 2 months inside your house. So, really, I mean, yes, it's hard, but we should be thankful to live in the times that we live in, that we don't have to just be isolated alone in our houses. And so I would definitely encourage you, and I've heard a lot of people say things like this, reach out to somebody else, message them through social media, text them, call them, ask them how they're doing, ask them if they need anything. Like if you're healthy and you're able to go out, check on a senior and see if maybe they need some groceries. Our seniors, and I've seen this a lot with going to the dialysis clinic, a lot of the other patients are older people, and they're very scared because they see what's reported on the news. And a lot of what's reported on the news is the bad, all the bad things that are happening, and that's what they see. Now, for myself, I don't typically watch the news, and when I want to find out what's going on, I check a few different sources and I kind of balance out all the information I'm reading. So I can look at the bad things reported, but then I can look at the good things and I can kind of merge those two together and come to like a reasonable conclusion. But I feel for these older people because they're just so scared, knowing that they're at risk and seeing how bad everything seems to be. So if if you have an elderly neighbor, if you have elderly family members, just call them and ask them how they're doing. Let them talk, let them express their fears. And I feel like that would be helpful. And that's one thing I've learned is that if you're going through something difficult yourself, if you can reach out to someone else and try to help them, it makes things make sense again. It puts things in perspective. And that's one thing I've learned with even making these videos and talking about maybe some of the difficult things that I've gone through. It might help someone else who's going through a difficult time, and that in turn helps me. So then really quickly, I just wanted to share a couple of books with you that I've been using and reading, and I feel like they're really helping me. I have a little tickle in my throat, by the way, so nobody freaks out. Allergy season has started. So I just have this little like tickle. It's not really a cough, but I just have to clear my throat once in a while. I just wanted to put that out there. I don't have a fever. I'm checking my temperature like 5 or 6 times a day, literally. And I don't have a fever, so I'm on top of this. So the first thing I wanted to show is this gratitude journal. Now I actually bought this 2 years ago. I started it in 2018, and I'll just show you kind of what the inside looks like. So it just has, each page is divided in half. So you got 2 different days here, and you put the day at the top, and then it just says, today I am grateful for, and you just fill it in. And like I said, when it seems like everything that's going on is so bad and so terrible, if you just sit down and start thinking about all the things you have in your life to be grateful for, it really puts things back in their proper perspective. So I mean, and you don't have to have a book to do this. You could just use a notebook and just write this out yourself. I had found this on Amazon, like I said, a couple of years ago. I got it for just a few dollars. It was used, but it had never been written in. So like I said, I wrote in this a few times back in 2018, and then I kind of stopped using it, but I'm pulling this back out, and I have started too already using this. Just find something good about every day that you can be grateful for. Then I have this book, which also I had bought probably a couple years ago, and I started reading it and never had finished it. And I just found it the other day, and I was like, this is perfect. It's called Finding God's Path Through Your Trials. It's written by Elizabeth George, and she is also the author of the book called A Woman After God's Own Heart, which is a great, great book as well. But this, like I said, I started reading it, And I'm probably just gonna restart it from the beginning and finish it out this time. But you know, finding what God's purpose is in what you're going through, that something good is going to come from what we consider a trial. And then this book I just got the other day, I just started reading it. It's so good. It's called When God Doesn't Fix It. And the author of this one is Laura Story. If you're not familiar with her, she is a musician, and she actually wrote a song called Blessings. And I highly, highly recommend that you look that song up on YouTube. It is an amazing song. It's a song that I have loved since the first time I heard it. I've always said and felt like it could have been written about my life. Like all the things that I've gone through, but I can look back on those things and I can see where God has turned those into a blessing. And I really, like, before all this virus stuff started, I was looking for something right along these lines. God doesn't always take away the bad things that are happening to us, because sometimes he does have a purpose for those, and such a blessing can come out of something that we feel is so, so bad. And just really quick, her story is about her husband. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and the doctor said it was, it was not cancerous, but it was pressing on his pituitary gland, and so it had to be removed, but it was operable. And so they thought that, great, we figured out what it was. It took a while to figure out. We figured it out, and now we know what to do, and life is going to get back to normal. And that's really not what happened for them. And so, like I said, I'm still in the midst of reading the story from her perspective, and it's really powerful. It is really something to see how God worked through this situation for them. And so I am very excited to finish reading this and get everything I can out of it. Again, I found this used on Amazon just a few days ago. I paid $3.99 for it, and it was used, but it hardly looks like anybody's touched it. So, like I said, I just wanted to share really quickly those books with you guys, just a few thoughts and ideas. What else was I going to say? Oh, I'm also going to share in my description box, I'm going to put in some links for some Facebook pages that are mine. I have a Facebook page for my channel for Too Blessed. I also have an Instagram account for Too Blessed, and I will share both of those. And then I have also started a Facebook page for my kidney transplant journey specifically, where I was planning to share updates on the whole process. And right when I started it was when we got the news that we were on hold. So I'm still trying to post updates and information on that page. So if you want to follow all of those or any of those, you can see some updates, especially during these times where maybe a lot's going on and I don't share any videos. You can get updates and at least see that I'm okay if you want to follow those pages. So like I said, I will have those links down in the description box. I think that's everything I was going to share with you guys today. I'm sure this video is probably pretty long enough, so I'm going to end it here. I am hoping during this downtime, I've got a few projects that I'm going to be working on, so I'm hopefully going to be sharing those with you guys. On the bright side of things, that we all might have a little time on our hands to work on some fun things, so I'm hoping to share those with you and give you some ideas too. So that's all I have for today, guys. If you're new here, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. But thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.